Hello, everyone. Welcome into episode 150 of the Stomp the Bus Show. I'm your host, Mark Harris, and this will be an interesting episode, that's for sure. A lot to go over. Some not great stuff to go over. Obviously, whenever you lose in the Territorial Cup, it's not fun. I will get to that, obviously. Get to a bunch of stuff, non football stuff surrounding ASU as well. That'll be more towards the end of the episode. And everything in between. Some recruiting, some transfer portal stuff, but just kind of a lot of kind of big picture, general state of the program type stuff. I think this is the right show to talk about it. Uh, please like and subscribe on YouTube, rate and review in your podcast platform of choice, and let's get going. So there's since the end of the Territorial Cup on Friday night, there's just been a lot of things kind of circulating in my head around ASU football. And I'll be honest, I'm having trouble grasping what this season was, because all of the, honestly, like in recent years, it's been pretty easy at the end of the year to be like, oh, okay, this is how I feel about the season. And we move forward from there. Last year, obviously, it was great. Okay. Losing the Texas game sucks. Whatever. Like, it was a great season, a fantastic way to get your name out there as a university, as a football program. Like, I think ASU is still feeling the residual effects of that. So anyway, last year, great. The 2 seasons before, terrible. Terrible. Obviously, you go 3-9. 21, just you were left wanting more, and you could see the dysfunction kind of bleed through the screen with that team. 2020, you didn't know, and then before, like the first 2 years of Herm, we're like, okay, this is pretty good. This is better than we thought, and it looks like we're building something. And you get the tug, and then it's back. But my point is, like, the end of this year, I'm still being like, okay, how do I like get a grip on this team? How do I wrap my arms around this team mentally? And not in terms of like the players on the team, more so like the result of what happened in the 12 regular season games. Obviously, ASU finishes the year 8-4. They entered the Territorial Cup ranked number 20 in the college football playoff poll. They lose 23-7. Jeff Sims has 5 turnovers in that game. And it's just, I think we're all just kind of left being like, okay, now what? What do we do now? What's the future of this program going to be? Unless the Penn State situation gets really weird, Dilly did not get poached by some other team. And honestly, I was never worried about Penn State to begin with. So any kind of concern about that pretty much went away on, Sunday once it was announced. Really, when it was announced that John Summerall was going to Florida and Golesh was going to Auburn. And obviously, like, Dillingham wasn't leaving anyway, but it was officially put to bed. So that's done. And honestly, like, that's something that like is really good. That it's just like, okay, like we can move forward. Dillingham is our coach for next year, at least, right? Likely is our coach going into the future, because if he really wanted to leave, I mean, LSU, Florida, Auburn, like he could have jumped and he didn't. So that's the end of that. The Sam Levitt thing is still, as of Tuesday night at 5:20 p.m. Arizona time, still up in the air. Nothing has changed on my view, on my end of like, okay, like maybe he'll stay, but he's probably leaving. And I'm still in that boat. So then you're just left with an 8-4 season with a loss to Arizona at the end of the year. That is what happened, right? Like, I've seen, there's fans saying it's a success, fans saying it's a failure, a disappointment, all of these sorts of things. And I can see the arguments to most viewpoints. I guess I'll just come out and say it, like 8-4 for this season, giving the players that you brought back, giving the returners, the high level talent at quarterback and wide receiver, or one wide receiver, I should say, with your quarterback and your top wide receiver, the defensive returners, the offensive line returners, all this stuff. 8-4 is not good enough. Okay. For given the expectations in the roster and the returning production and all these things, 8-4 for the 2025 season was not good enough. But Sam Leavitt was out 5 of the 7 regular season games. He did not play in 5 of the 7 regular season games. And in another one, which the Houston loss, he was in and out of that game. So he was like almost half the year, he was either out or playing in limited action against Houston. By the way, like I don't put the Houston loss in the bin of like, oh, we were injured. Like, no, that's in some ways the Houston loss is the worst loss of the year in some ways. But anyway, look, you went 8-4, but you went 8-4 with 5 of those games started by Jeff Sims. And so that's what really muddies the water here. And like the Territorial Cup, it's a very obvious reason why ASU lost that game. It was because Jeff Sims had 5 turnovers, including 2 absolutely backbreaking killer fumbles. I was looking at the game chart before recording. I mean, all of his interceptions proved to basically be meaningless in terms of how there was the one at the end of the game that one just hurts in terms of like the statistics for him because that was completely meaningless. The interception he had in the first half, ASU's defense forced a punt right after that. And so that didn't affect, sure, it affected field position, but it didn't affect the game. And then the one to Stooks deep, like, yeah, it was an interception, but if you're going to throw a pick, throw it deep, man. I mean, Arizona got their ball back, in the third. I thought that happened in the first half. But Arizona got the ball back at their own 6-yard line. And they forced a field goal. Like, this game was 13-7 entering the fourth quarter. It does not feel like that looking back. But it was 13-7 Arizona entering the fourth quarter. The 2 fumbles he had were just absolutely killer. The one first drive of the second half, fumble in basically at your own 10-yard line, and U of A just scores at your own 6-yard line, and U of A just scores a touchdown. Like, it's brutal. It's just an absolutely brutal mistake. And then the one at the end sealed the game. Like, ASU was driving. They were down 16-7, so like it wasn't. They needed some type of score even. Like, they didn't just need. And he had 4 passes of 10 or more yards on that drive too. And then right after a 25-yard pass to McLean at the U of A that gets them ASU to the U of A 16-yard line. It's a Jeff Sims rush for 3 yards, fumbled, and that just took out the wind in the sails, and then U of A scores the final touchdown to make it more of a margin. So my point with Jeff Sims specific to the U of A game is like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, we would have won if all this. Like, no, we have no idea what would have happened if Sam Leavitt played and if Jordan Tyson was healthy for that full game. We don't. Okay. But they weren't. And so like, that's just part of it. But like Jeff Sims, like, you turn the ball over 5 times, you're not going to win. And 2 of those 2 fumbles were just brutal. I mean, they're absolutely brutal. So like, my point with the Jeff Sims aspect of the Territorial Cup is like, I think for me, And honestly, I think for a lot of ASU fans, just based on what I've seen online, not all ASU fans, not even most probably, but a lot of ASU fans, it was a very obvious culprit, a very obvious reason that that ASU lost that game. And it was all like Jeff Sims was almost so bad in that game due to his turnovers that it makes it easier to deal with because it would have been much worse if Jeff Sims had just played like a average game and ASU had still lost by double digits, you know? If Jeff Sims had played the game he did against Colorado or against I think West Virginia, he was actually good. But you get my point. Like Utah, the game he played against Utah. If he had just played like a nondescript game, maybe he had one turnover of some kind, and ASU still lost by double digits, that would be like a whole like, oh, they're like it's just a program, like they just beat you in every way, you know? And I guess like this, you can say it's cope, you can say it's whatever. Like when you have someone who just plays so bad, it's almost like, okay, I mean, to me, it's easier to wrap my head around being like, okay, well, like that's why, you know? And so, I mean, look, I'm a Seahawks fan. We just shut out the Minnesota Vikings this past weekend and picked off their quarterback 4 times. Like I'm not running victory laps. We're like, oh, like we're incredible. Like our defense is awesome, but like there's a lot. Like it's not the best, opposing quarterback. And obviously, like Jeff Sims is a better college football quarterback than Max Brosmer is an NFL quarterback. I want to be clear with that. Like, but my point is like it's an obvious reason why ASU lost. And I mean, look, with Jeff Sims, like I was thinking this the other day. I think the Iowa State game kind of fooled us a little bit, or not fooled us actually, but I think it gave us more hope than maybe we should have uh, expected. Because in that game, he did have 3 turnovers, but he also ran for 228 yards, 2 touchdowns, and I mean, heck, that's an Iowa State team that finished the year 8-4. So he like that win was still awesome for ASU, but I think it just built this expectation of like, oh, we're just gonna be able to do a facsimile of this every game, and that wasn't true. Defenses kind of took away the QB run game a bit more. Iowa State was injured in that game too on the defensive end, so like those things come into play. But I just think that like I don't know, man. Like with Jeff Sims, he started 5 games, and this ties back into my original point of like, if you've told me the year ASU was going to go 8-4, I would be disappointed. But if you told me before the year they were going to go 8-4, and in 5 of those 12 games, the starting quarterback for ASU would be Jeff Sims, I would be, I don't want to say overjoyed, but I'd be like, oh, I can see how that would lead. Like, I can see how those things would come together like that, you know? And it turned out that, like, in my opinion, 2 of ASU's 3 hardest opponents were started by Jeff Sims. We can argue Houston versus Arizona. I understand that Houston beat Arizona. Obviously, they beat Arizona State. I just think that Arizona is a better team than Houston. Funny enough, they got ranked higher in the final in the poll, despite Houston actually beating them. But like just the eye test, like Arizona's better than Houston. If they played again, Arizona would win. And thank God they didn't. With like 2 of Arizona's losses in the Big 12 were a 3-point road loss to Houston and a overtime loss to BYU. So there's a world in which some things bounce right for Arizona and they go like 10-2 or 11-1 this year. And that would have been an absolute nightmare. They don't. And, credit to Arizona. They turned it around. Brent Brennan, my initial suspicions were correct. Like, he is a good coach. It turned out that way. So, like they had a good year. Fafita is a good college quarterback. I don't think he's better than Levitt. I just don't. even if Levitt leaves, like just as a just player, some U of A fans are some of the victory laps done by them are a little bit like, okay, like let's just stay tethered to the bounds of reality. Like if you want to talk like I'm not even gonna get into all that. But um like Fafita's a good college quarterback, undoubtedly. Like there's no debating that. And he didn't like kill ASU, I didn't think, but he made some plays and he found the open guy. And so like credit to him. Like he played well. I didn't look at this as like, oh, Noah Fafita, like he totally destroyed the ASU defense. Like, no, I didn't look. I'm sorry, I just don't look at it that way. Like I look at it as they took advantage of. I just look at it as U of A didn't really screw up, aside from some field goal misses. Those affected how the score played out. But ASU had a field goal miss too. They had a terrible punt or two in that game. Like it's not like ASU was flawless on special teams. So anyway, I guess my point is with Sims, like him starting 5 games, just it completely changes what this season. I'm just gonna say could have been. Let's say Sam Levitt starts 10 or 11 games. I'm not even gonna give him a full clean bill of health. 10 or 11 games. ASU probably goes 9-3 at worst. Because the Mississippi State loss was 100% on Levitt. So that one definitely would have happened still. Utah probably still lose. And then maybe you just split, U of A and Houston instead of losing both. So, I'm not going to, but, we don't know. So, look, credit to Jeff Sims for steering the ship. Like, I'm not going to say he played great against West Virginia, and he did the first half against West Virginia. But like, I'm not going to say the West Virginia and Colorado games from him were outstanding. But like, ASU did not lose those games, and those would have been obviously like losing to U of A. It's terrible. I hate it. Like, it sucks. But they look, they were still a good. They're a good team. You lose to a good team, like that happens. Losing to had ASU lost to Colorado or West Virginia, which all like that actually could have happened, the West Virginia loss, then I wouldn't have cared that it was Jeff Sims. But the competition just eventually, like, U of A is just too good to have a game where you play like Jeff Sims did and you win. So that's kind of my thought on the Territorial Cup. I've seen some fans say this season was a failure because ASU lost the Territorial Cup and finished 8-4. I do not agree with that assumption. I do not agree that if ASU like loses to Arizona, just that alone, then the season's a failure. I don't look at it that way. I don't look at it the opposite way either. I was like, oh, if ASU goes 5-7, but they beat U of A, it's a great no. Like I don't look at like I don't look at I don't. There've been so many mid ASU teams that have beaten bad U of A teams. Like it's like it's great to just avoid the terrible aspect of losing to them more than it is like, oh, we're so good. So I think if you're calling this season a failure, like I would be on board. I'm closer to that than I am saying a success. But you can't just, as a fan, I think in this era of college football, like you can't just ignore your backup starting 5 of 7 games at quarterback. Like that changes the calculus. Okay. And so these are kind of the things that I'm weighing because I also like, I've seen some people say, oh, this was a success. I'm like, no, I don't think it was a full on, not 100% success. I just don't like you ultimately, like you still went 8-4, and not all of those losses were with Jeff Sims, right? The first, like the Mississippi State loss, like that's a really bad one. And I had a tweet after that game, like, oh, this loss could come back to haunt ASU. It could be the difference. I think I said like this could be the difference between going 8-4 and 9-3. And look, if ASU had lost to Arizona both teams finished 9-3, ASU is probably ranked Probably. I don't know. Like maybe, but at least you go 9. At least we could still say, hey, you know what? We can still have a 10-win season. I mean, the 2014 season. I think most people remember the 2014 season positively. They lost U of A that year. Okay, and that was for a berth in the Pac-12 South or the Pac-12 championship game. So the stakes were higher on that. Guess what? The 2014 season is still a good season in ASU football history, even though they lost to U of A. The '86 Rose Bowl team lost to U of A. Sucks. Guess what? Still a really awesome season for ASU. So to me, it's not. To me, the loss. It's not really losing to U of A. It's more of that loss. Make sure you're not going to be ranked. It ended any faint hopes at a Big 12 championship game, although I wasn't really too worried about that. But, uh, like going from finishing 9-3 versus 8-4 feels different. It does. And you're just much more like in the morass, the meaty middle of college football. So, like the 8-4 record, isolating that, like it's just not good enough for the 2025 season, given the specific situation that ASU is in. Now, if ASU goes 8-4 next year, I will take that right now because we have no idea who the quarterback's going to be. Tyson will be gone. Ian Ocho will be gone. A bunch of the guys on defense will be gone. All like it's a completely different scenario. So this isn't me saying 8-4 isn't good enough for ASU in general. I'm saying it wasn't good enough for this particular season. And then you go back to like, oh, that's right. There's 5 of those 12 games were started by Jeff Sims. And so it's like, well, it kind of is good enough, And so that's why kind of this episode, like I'm just still talking things out. Like I still am not like, even as we're 20 minutes into this show, like I don't know what you like. I think with this season, what I will say is the Texas Tech win is awesome. I know they had a backup quarterback. Will Hammond is a much better back. And I think Will Hammond might actually be better than Baron Morton. I think Sam Leavitt is a better quarterback than Baron Morton by a lot. And Jeff Sims is probably the worst of all those 4 quarterbacks. And so like Will Hammond was the reason that Texas Tech beat Utah soundly. Will Hammond soundly helped Texas Tech beat Kansas and Oklahoma State. So like it's just not apples to apples. But anyway, like that was an awesome win for ASU. The Iowa State win, credit to Jeff Sims, great win for ASU. TCU win, Sam Leavitt balled out in that game. It's another win over an 8-win team, So like those things are good. You didn't lose any horrible in-conference games, right? The one horrible loss you do have is it didn't affect like the actual conference standing. So you put that to the side. The Houston loss was bad. Then sure there was some mixed kicks and the bullshit fumble that Sam Leavitt had, but whatever, it all counted, and you found yourself down by a lot at that point in that game. So that one, like I think that's really the one that like pisses me off like that was the Houston loss was the biggest team effort loss aside. I guess Utah was the biggest team effort loss, but the reason I don't mention the Utah game as being so horrible is because I just think that like healthy ASU, like I just don't think they were winning that game. Sam Leavitt, like I don't even, that was like a schedule loss more so. And I think you could have had a great season and accomplished everything you wanted to this year with a Utah loss baked in. So that's why I don't really focus in on that one. It's really about the Mississippi State loss, the Houston loss, and the U of A loss. U of A loss, extremely explainable. Your quarterback turned it over 5 times. Mississippi State loss, also explainable. Your starting quarterback played the worst game of his career, was completely overwhelmed by the atmosphere, everything. He just played bad. He overthrew receivers early on, and you had to stage a comeback, and you called a blitz at the wrong time. And like I wouldn't put that on like the team. And then Houston, Houston, that's kind of a team loss. Like defense wasn't terrible, but they weren't great. Special teams was bad. Levitt wasn't that good for large portions of that game. So all of this is to say, you go 8-4. My opinion is it's like kind of like a B- type of season. The Jeff Sims injury, I'm sorry, the Sam Levitt injury with Jeff Sims playing for 5 to 12 games, starting 5 to 12 games, I think that's where I get to be like, okay, like this is what makes it not be a failure is because you had to prop up like 3 of your wins were with Sims. So ultimately, that's why I can't say it's a failure. I can't say it's a full-blown success either because the record is still the record. I would just say like it's kind of just like, you know what it is? It's like if you're in a high-level college class and you don't you're just not totally up to it mentally, whatever it is. And you get through parts of it, like you can do the homework assignments well enough. You can do the discussion boards well enough. You can do the group projects well enough. Like all these type of things. Like you can do them well enough to get by and have like a, oh wow, I have a B- in finance or whatever it is. But then you get the test and you can't hang. And that's what happened. Like Jeff Sims did well enough versus Iowa State, even with 3 turnovers in that game. He still did well enough in that game. West Virginia, really good game from him. Like 3 touchdown passes in the first half. He had 1 fumble, led a game-winning drive, technically, right, for the field goal. Good enough. Colorado took a bit to start. He had the really dumb fumble and then the interception, but ASU still wins. And it's like, okay, like did well enough. And then you play probably the third best team that you played all year. And it's just, he failed. Like he failed the test. And so it just dooms you from that. That's kind of what I thought. Like, it's just, and it's like a college class I took. Like I could get by doing like what I was doing with my like not expertise level. And like, I think it was like finance, but then eventually you had a test and like, I'm just glad that I had my grades in a decent spot before that test so I could take the hit that came from the test and failing the test. So like that's kind of what I think ASU football is with Sims. It's like I'm glad that they went into that game with 8 wins already. And I think I said so in the last show. Like because we just didn't know like and it turned out terribly. So yeah, that's why like I just can't really put like that's why I just give it a letter grade and not like, oh, it was a failure, oh, it was a success, even a disappointment. Like I guess you could say it was a disappointment, but like it's kind of disappointing that your quarterback was out for 5 games. And like people can say, oh, like the offense was kind of mediocre before Sims came in and all this. And like there is some truth to that, but like we just don't know what like we don't know what would have happened, even if you bake in the Houston loss too. We don't know what happens if Levitt's just like relatively healthy. Like, do they lose to Iowa State instead? Or like, we don't know. That's what's frustrating. But, and of course, Sims played at Utah as well. So it's just kind of a weird spot. But I will say, I do think this season did enough for ASU's general momentum as a program. It didn't stymie their momentum that much. I don't think. I mean, you still have 7 sellouts. Okay. And 2 of those sellouts were against Northern Arizona and Texas State. Games that I would never even expect the fan base to sell out. The West Virginia game, like, that's a weird, technically conference rival, but not really. And it was with Sims, but it was technically a sellout. U of A game, great atmosphere, sellout. TCU game, great atmosphere, sellout. Houston game, pretty good atmosphere, didn't work out. And then the Texas Tech game. So I think from that perspective, it's really good. I think I mean, look, the recruiting class we're bringing in, I'm not going to sit here and say that it's transformational or anything, but 36, like that's not terrible. That's kind of what you expect for ASU when things are just like in decent shape, you know? And I mean, they now have four-star guys with the addition of Jermaine Mitchell, the offensive tackle from the JUCO in Mississippi. So you have Fetty. Let me share this. But like my point with the I'm not going to share it, but like my point with the recruiting thing is like you didn't completely get thrown off course because you lost a few more games than you should have. You know, the recruiting is fine. I expect in the portal, like it from all accounts, from all reports, rumors, all this, like whether Sam Levitt leaves or stays, it seems like ASU is going to have more money at its disposal this portal cycle. That is a good sign. And some of that is coming from Michael Crow. Like it's more coming from the university. That's a great sign. I just feel like interest in the program in general has not like dipped to this horrible degree because ASU didn't complete its goals in the 2025 season. I think interest in the program is pretty good still. And that's what I'm talking about with like the residual effects of winning the Big 12 and making the college football playoff. Like I think that just on like a day-to-day like sports discussion in the Valley, like ASU is now at a bigger spot than it was. I'm not going to say this time last year, but this time compared to this time 13 months ago or even 13 and a half, like whatever, like it took people a little bit to like fully realize how good this ASU team was last year, right? The UCF game, I keep going to that game last year. And that's the type of game that this year's team doesn't win. For whatever reason, they don't get the turnovers, they don't get the quarterback play, whatever it is, right? I think that but again, the UCF game last year, like that was like 75% full, if that. Friday night game versus Utah was not as full as it could have been. So like I think they had two sellouts. It was like the Kansas game and the BYU game. And some of that because BYU had their own fans. Like granted, a lot of them live in the Valley, but like it took people a little bit to like for ASU to kind of enter the news cycle and enter the just general talking conversations of people in the Valley. Now I think they're there more so. And people rally around Dillingham, you know. I think I don't look at this year and be like, oh, Dillingham took a step back. Like, not really. There were individual times where I was upset. Like I'm still upset about the safety blitz in Starkville. That was stupid. And some of that falls on him. And I don't think the Houston game was particularly well coached. Like I was not that happy in that game. But overall, I mean, again, they had Jeff Sims for 5 of 12 games, and they won 3 of them. Now, it's a good thing that like 2 of those games were West Virginia and Colorado, probably the 2 weakest conference opponents that you faced. So that's something to keep in mind. But like, whatever, they happened, and so I don't look at Dillingham differently. I am not one like. There's been a lot of discussion and debate about Marcus Arroyo. I'm not here to like tell people that they're wrong, especially when it comes. I think the most damning thing with Arroyo this year is that ASU never scored a touchdown in the first quarter, or maybe I think that might have been against FBS teams. So I think they might have done it against Northern Arizona, but that's a really bad stat. However, I don't look at like, oh, we have to get rid of Arroyo. Like, I don't really look at it that way either. So like, and then Ward, like the defense totally held up its end of the bargain this year. There was only one game where they were terrible, and that was a game where they weren't winning anyway at Utah. You can point, pick some nits like, oh, they didn't get off the field on 3rd down or whatever, but like they sacked the quarterback a lot. They had like they're going to get a few guys drafted off this unit. Definitely Keyshawn Elliott, CJ Fight is high on draft boards. Keith Abney, obviously, like, and they could potentially get someone else. Like that was that was a unit that was the most trustworthy unit on this team. Special teams was a disaster, and it probably cost you a game or two in somewhere. And at least ASU made the change whether Regal was sick, whatever. Like there is a new special teams approach with Jack Nudo. So I'm not going to get into the details of that because it's just like, do we get a new punter? I don't like whatever. But um, I think when it comes to the U of A game, like I don't see that as like some just. I think there have been I've seen a few people that are trying to be like, oh, like now it's like, like everything that ASU has worked for is now like the balloon is popped. I think that is such BS. I just think that is such BS. If U of A fan, ASU fan, whatever, like if you're trying to peddle this argument that like because ASU lost this game to Arizona, like the ASU is just going to fall back to being what it was before Dillingham, or like I don't believe that at all. I just don't believe that. So, we'll see. I mean, there a lot can change in this month of December as well. Like some of the strength of the program argument stuff, like that could get strengthened or diminished by New Year's Eve, because of the announcements of who's coming where in the portal. And I by the way, like I put the Levitt stuff outside of that. I think this is a random thing, but I saw some people saying ASU didn't have enough depth, and that's why this year didn't go as well as planned. I don't agree with that either. I think the only area where there was actual depth issues was wide receiver, and that was a concern entering the year. If Sam Levitt stays healthy, Jaron Hamilton probably has a better year, but Derek Eusebio and McLean probably have worse years. So I don't know, how you can slice that, but I thought the defensive depth was fine. Xavier Alford was out for the entire year basically, and Boogie Wilson just came in and filled the role. I don't know, without much like drop off. I mean, I'm sure there were some things that Wilson didn't do well at, but like, and I'm not saying he was better than Alford or anything, but I didn't feel like that was a huge issue. So like the defensive depth, I don't think was an issue at all. I mean, Cyrus Fiaseu was out for large chunks of time, and the linebackers were great. Like Crook and Elliott were excellent this year. And then offensive line, I thought the offensive line depth was fine. Thought the offensive line starters were not as good as expected, aside from Ian Achor. But the depth, I mean, by the end of the year, you had Wade Helton and Makai Stewart, and you got Champ Westbrooks waiting in the wings. Like you've got some guys. Like that's one actually thing to be really excited about for next year. I'm not excited about, but I guess just like not worry about is the offensive line. Now, granted, Helton could there's always the transfer stuff, but like Helton, Stewart, Makuapule played. You have Jermaine Mitchell coming in as a JUCO guy, 6'8", 310. Like he could start. Westbrooks, I mentioned. So like that's this area where I'm not really worried about. Running backs, like a running back depth was fine. Kyson Brown was out. Brayleaf Brown has a 1,100-yard season. I don't worry about running back next year. Like Kyson Brown comes back, and like I bet you just turn it to Jason Brown now, or Robinson. So like that's not something I'm too worried about. Tight end depth was fine. Mateer had a good year. Harpole contributed more than we probably thought, right? And then I mean Ia and Kamari Anderson, like they were fine when they were called upon. And so quarterback depth, I know it's crazy to say this right now, but like if your backup quarterback plays 5 games against conference competition and goes 3-2, that kind of shows you have quarterback depth. I know we don't want to hear it right now because Jeff Sims was terrible, and like that's not my point. It's just that like your backup went 3-5. It would be great if he had gone 4-1 or 5-0. Like I get it, but from a depth standpoint, I think the quarterback depth was fine. Wide receiver, yeah, the wide receiver depth was an issue. You never really had a guy who established himself as like the clear number 2 cut wide receiver. And that's been an issue with Dillingham his whole time. And not getting Deuce Robinson, that probably cost you like a win. you know? Now, it's tough to the motivations of these portal guys, like you have no idea. And I think Deuce Robinson's dad went to FSU too, so like that plays a role in it. So who knows? Maybe he's a portal target this year. That would be great. But that's kind of my thoughts. Like I just don't. I think if you're trying to spin this year, like it's like, oh, eight wins, like I'm not really here for the like, oh, like actually it's good that ASU like 8 wins is still really good. Like that's not really my position because again, you're not gonna have all these guys back. And it might be a bit before you have like a complete roster the way you did this year. So I'm not really on board like just stripping the context and say, oh, 8-4, that's good enough. Like, no, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with, oh, it's a failure. 8-4 wasn't good enough because Sims were starting for 5 games. So I've repeated myself a bunch on that, but that's just kind of how I feel. B minus, you know. But B minus in the sense that like not everything was lost. The momentum, I don't feel like the momentum was lost. I still feel like you're in good shape as a program, not great shape, good shape. Speaking of being affected as a program, bowl. Why did I just say bowl? Bowl projections are being done around all of our favorite media outlets. And Brad Denny from the Speak of the Devils podcast on Arizona Family, he had a handy dandy little tweet on December 1st with bowl projections. I'll read them aloud. ESPN's Bonagura has ASU playing in the LA Bowl versus UNLV. ESPN's Mark Schlabach has ASU playing in the Sun Bowl versus Clemson. CBS has ASU playing in the Sun Bowl versus Wake Forest. On3 has ASU playing in the Sun Bowl versus Clemson. Athlon has ASU playing in the Sun Bowl versus SMU. Denny tweets that he hears like the Sun Bowl is the most likely, but the LA Bowl and the Vegas Bowl are not off the table. So I've said this on my account. I have to. ASU, it should be lobbying like crazy to get to the Sun Bowl. I don't think that like going to the Sun Bowl is some awesome, grand, like, oh my gosh, we're going to the Sun Bowl. Like, no, that's not my argument. My argument is I do not want to go to the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl because you will be playing either Boise State, UNLV, San Diego State, or New Mexico. One of those 4 teams. I think it's most likely Boise State or UNLV. I'm not really like scared of playing those teams, but all of them are capable of beating this ASU team, whether it's Jeff Sims or Cam Dyer starting at quarterback. They are capable of beating this ASU team. And I don't want this year to end with a loss in a bowl game to a group of 5 team. I don't. I'm sorry. I would if ASU is going to lose in a bowl game, I'd rather it be to an ACC foe or a Big Ten foe in the Sun Bowl or Vegas Bowl, respectively. And so that's why I want ASU to go to the Sun Bowl. It's not that it's not some huge like, oh my gosh, the Sun. No, it's if we get to play Clemson in the Sun Bowl, that would be awesome. It would be. And I get it. Clemson is not, they had a worse year than ASU did, for Pete's sake. I mean, it's 7-5. But like it's from a just brand matchup, from just the helmets on the field, the uniforms. I'm like, okay, we play Clemson. Like that. If your 9th win of the year is a win over Clemson, that's going to put a good little bow on this season, or even against SMU. Now, if you play Wake Forest in the Sun Bowl, that would be a lot less enticing, but it's better than a group of 5 team. So I'm not too worried about that. And it looks like ASU will end up going to the Sun Bowl. The one good thing about the LA Bowl would be that you get it over with because it's on the 13th. And I do think there's some value in just like having the practices, it's done, you play the bowl game, and that's it. I do like see the value in that. But it would be kind of cool to have, New Year's Eve day on CBS alone, like with this whole time slot and everything, like, and you're playing Clemson, like that would just look good. And that would just be a good way to close out the year. So that's my thoughts on the Bulls. Some other stuff. But Shimon Mateer declared for the NFL draft. One of my favorite players. I hope he gets drafted. I think he can be like a 6th, 7th round pick. I don't think that's crazy. So good for him. Not going to read that whole deal. ASU, as I mentioned, gets the flip today, which look, JUCO guys, all love to you guys. Like, it's a tough path to go through. From an ASU perspective, it is so hit or miss. Because I saw a tweet from Chris Cartman, like, oh, Jalen Strong, Demarius Randall, Marcus Hardison, a bunch of other guys from like the early Todd Graham years were JUCO guys, and they were awesome. And that's like great. ASU has also gotten a lot of JUCO guys that don't do anything when they get here. It is a complete roll of the dice. However, when you're getting a guy who is listed as a 4-star on 24/7, who Georgia wanted, Rivals ranks him as the #1 JUCO recruit, and he's 6'8", 310, and you flip him from Georgia, that's good. It's good. Even if this guy does nothing, even if Jermaine Miller comes to Tempe and like doesn't contribute at all, even just getting him, like, I do like that. So, and you know, and I'm being so negative about it, but like, he could be awesome. He could be your lockdown left tackle next year. And you're like, oh, how did ASU find him? It's like, well, he was the #1 JUCO guy, and Georgia wanted him too. Like, I do like the aspect of that you beat Georgia for someone. That I like. So, wishing him the best. Like, it's more my aversion about like JUCO guys, like you just never know, as it is like, oh, this guy's not good. Like, I don't know how good he is, but Georgia thought he was good enough to offer him. So if Georgia did, then that means something to me from a JUCO standpoint. And you also got the guy Kirtland Vahelahi, I believe. And he went to a JUCO in New Mexico. I want to get his name right because Kirtland Vakalahi. Okay, that's who it was. He comes in on the defensive line, an Australian guy. So if ASU gets that tight end, Nate Salmon or whatever, you could have. Oh well, no, Salmon's New Zealand from New Zealand. So you got 2 guys from New Zealand and Australia potentially. So that would be cool. But I ultimately, like, I'm not like jumping like full like 2 toes down for Jermaine Mitchell. I'm just hesitant with JUCO guys. But again, it's still good to get a guy like this. Georgia wanted him, and hey, it boosts your recruiting rankings if nothing else. Another news item that it's not on my feed, but Tate Romney entered the transfer portal, backup linebacker. I saw some people being like, "Oh, like Tate Romney, like he was in line to start and all this," and you know he filled in well, which he did fill in well. I don't think if ASU doesn't do that well next year, we're going to be like, oh, if only we had Tate Romney. Like, no, like I wish him the best, but I just don't think that that's a huge, like any sort of impactful type of loss in the portal. Now, if Rodney Bimage enters the portal, if CJ Fight went into the portal, but like you get my point, like younger guys who actually really contributed. If AJ Ia enters the portal, like those are types of ones you don't want them to enter the portal. That would actually sting a bit. But I don't think Jermaine Mitchell is, or I'm sorry, not Jermaine is. I don't think Tate Romney falls into that category. And then one more. There's been a lot of lower tier quarterbacks entering the transfer portal, and one guy I have circled is Old Dominion quarterback Colton Joseph. This guy, I'm going to pull up his stats. This is if Sam Leavitt leaves, which is what I have. Colton Joseph, he's from Newport Beach, California. So something tells me he was never dreaming of going to Old Dominion when he was a young kid. He rushed for 1,000 yards and 13 touchdowns as a quarterback. Passing wise, not as good, but he threw for 2,600 yards, 21 touchdowns, 10 picks, had a long of 98 in a game. So that's cool. 16 sacks, overall good metrics in the rating and quarterback rating. But if you get a dual threat like that, man, and this guy ran for 180 and 2 touchdowns against Indiana. And Indiana beat a lot of teams by more than just 13 points than they did Old Dominion 27-14. And so, like, he balled out against those athletes on defense. And he continued to have good rushing outputs aside from one game, aside from James Madison, another really good team, a team that actually, because of the ACC championship game, tiebreakers and stuff, like a potential playoff team, right? This guy is not perfect. He's a sub 60% passer. I get it. If you can get this guy, we will not be that worried about Sam Levitt leaving. I'm telling you that right now. Again, I don't want Sam Levitt to leave. I'm saying if he does leave, go for Colton Joseph. That would be a really good replacement. So I think with football, I've kind of talked everything out. I'll take a quick glance at our recruiting class. I think this could still go up. 36th overall. And if ASU adds a few more guys, which it looks like they will before the early signing day period, this could get even better. You have 4 stars when you include Jermaine Mitchell. And, Carde Mack and Hugo were not always considered 4 stars. So it's cool that those guys get bumped up. Obviously, Jake Fetty as well. And then you have 3 more guys who are really high 3 stars. Kirtland Vakalahi, who I mentioned, Hayden Vircher, and then Landon Anderson, a defensive lineman from Oklahoma. So it's 7 guys who probably in one service are rated as 4 stars. And then you get a bit further down to the 3-star guys. I feel pretty good. Like I haven't really talked much recruiting, and it's just it's can be such a moving target. ASU just lost a guy to freaking Northwestern the other day, so good for him. But like it's not locked in, right? But I feel pretty good about the recruiting class, and I imagine there will be a few more guys potentially within the next 24 hours. It seems like that's what's been kind of teased. I don't have subscriptions to either Devil's Digest or Sun Devil Source, but it seems like ASU is not done, and I like that aspect of it. So that's enough with football. B- like season. I think it's hyperbolic to be like, oh, it's a success or oh, it's a failure. I think you have to factor in the Jeff Sims part of it. And yeah. And if you think that's a quick description, you can listen to the first 45 minutes of the show where I hem and haw about it. Anyway, so on to different sports. There are different sports going on at Arizona State right now. Men's basketball. I recorded the last episode as they were playing Washington State. They beat Washington State. Mo Odom was excellent again. Then they lose to USC in the Maui Invitational Championship. That was just USC's a good team, and that it just kind of felt like ASU ran out of gas. But you know what? It's okay. It is okay. I think any of us would have taken 5. What ASU is 6-2 through the first 8 games. You play well enough against Gonzaga, and the USC game got away from him. But like, okay, you balance that out with a win over Texas, a win over Wazoo, and Hawaii is apparently rated pretty well in some of the metrics. Like, okay, that was a true road game. So you've got a decent non-con state slate left. You can go 4-1 in this stretch. That would be awesome. you host or you play Oklahoma in the Suns Arena on Saturday. That should be a good atmosphere. Oklahoma is kind of the perfect type of team for ASU to play because they're 5-2. They're not, they lost to Nebraska by 6. They lost to Gonzaga in a similar type of way that ASU lost to Gonzaga. They have a 1-point win over Marquette. They're playing Wake Forest right now, actually, and they are up by 2 over a 6-2 Wake Forest team. So playing Oklahoma, like this is kind of a team that you can beat, and also a team that like might be a bubble team at the end of the year, which that's kind of the teams I want ASU to play. I don't want them to play like the best of the best right now. That doesn't really help what this team is trying to accomplish. So I think that the one negative I will say is like their rebounding is not great. And I just felt like they don't get to loose balls that well. At least they didn't in the Maui Invitational, but only cost them one game. It cost them the championship game. So that's great. And another thing with them beating Texas, I probably mentioned this at the time, but beating Texas was so important because you avoided having to play Chaminade in the losers bracket. And sure, it would have been a win, but it's a D2 team. There's no gain of any sort of measure if you beat them. And a loss would have been detrimental. So like it worked out. Mo Odom has been awesome. I mean, all you could ask for and more. He's averaging 19 points and 6 assists. Like that's great. Shooting 44% from 3. That'll dip, but he'll take it. Like you feel good when he's shooting them. Pig Johnson is just a burst of energy off the bench. Jop has slowed down a little bit, but I still think he's been really good so far. Bryce Ford has been much better than we thought, with already 10.6 points per game. Truett feels like a game by game with Truett because he's a terrible 3-point shooter. But he's the rebounding leader and scoring 7.5 points a game. And then you get down to the other guys. But, this team, it's much more competent than I thought. So that's good. And they have opportunities to enhance their record and their tournament case in December before conference play really picks up. So I like where ASU men's basketball is right now. I was not expecting to be this positive about the team entering the month of December. I'll be honest. So they've done well, and the Maui Invitational was a good showing for them. And I love that they get about a week off to recharge and play a good Oklahoma team. Not a great one, just a good, solid Power 4, high major, I should say, basketball team. Arizona State women's basketball. They're awesome. 8-0, best ever done by the Sun Devil women's program that was coached by Charlie Turner Thorne. Like, let's go. Let's go. I don't know I think Santa Clara and then UNLV is good. Obviously, the win over UNLV had that crazy buzzer beater. And then they've just dominated the lower competition that they've faced. So, I don't have any real insights on them, but they've done a great job so far. Women's volleyball. The Big 12 champs, once again, are back. They host Coppin State on Thursday night, and then when they more than likely win that game, they will host the winner of Tennessee and Utah State in the round 2 match on Friday night. So looks like another potential deep tournament run is on the table for JJ Van Neal and the women's volleyball team. They're just consistent excellence is really awesome. Finished the year 26-3, one Big 12 loss. I think they beat Nebraska this year. Who did they beat? I don't remember if it was Nebraska, but anyway, they picked off a really big win. It might have been Penn State who they beat. I gotta find this. Yes, it was Penn State. who was then number 2 at the time. Then they lost to Pitt. Okay. So great season by volleyball. And I think I'll be talking about them next week when they win their first round series. I think that they can go far. As I said, they showed it against a team like Penn State. You know, Texas and Pitt got them, but ultimately, like it's a really good season. And they've just built just a consistent winner. And my take of Kenny Dillingham is not the best coach at ASU. I wish I was wrong because I care about football more, but Van Neal, like he has done a kick-ass job. So credit to the women's volleyball team there. And to close out ASU hockey, I was down on this program recently, and their overall record of 7-8-1 underscores why I was so down on them. However, they have kind of, I'll be honest, I think they saved their season this past weekend with 2 wins over Ohio State. And they were both overtime wins, followed by an additional overtime win over Denver the weekend before. But you know what? Like, you got 2 consecutive road trips coming up. Minnesota Duluth is a traditionally good program. I don't know how that shakes out now, but like those are long flights to Duluth and New Hampshire for Dartmouth. Good to just get these wins, and getting sweeps is so important when you dig yourself a hole. You know, I mean, those losses to Augustin are still gonna ding you, but they overcame a horrible loss to Denver with a win, and then they grinded out 2 overtime wins against the Buckeyes. All right, that wraps it up for this show. Wanted to touch on some of the other sports at the end because obviously there's more going on than just football. But I do think the football, I guess, monologue from me, general discussion, it's a weird, I still can't really wrap my arms around and give like, oh, this is exactly how the season went. That's why I put it at a B-. But it's also not the end of the world. I think if you're super down on this program only because of what happened against U of A, I would say look at the bigger picture and understand that there's more. I get it, like it's a rivalry game, but like there's more data points out there than a rivalry game loss in which your backup quarterback, turned it over 5 times. That's what I'll say. All right. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. And as always, go Sun Devils, baby.